Welcome in, everyone. My name is Andrea Byers. You can call me Andy. I am a holistic wellness practitioner and a stress wellness coach, and I empower people every single day to unlock the healthiest, most vibrant, and balanced life they can live. Tonight, we're going to talk about change. So, change is never an easy transition. I'm going to be looking down at my notes because I want to make sure that I give all of these things to you in 30 minutes. So, change is never an easy transition. Sometimes it happens due to our own will. Sometimes it's trauma associated. Sometimes it's because we've outgrown people, places, things. If you are here today, it is because you are ready to embrace healthier relationships, whether that is ones with yourself or others. The fact that you are here says that you are ready to do something different. So pat yourself on the back, give yourself a big hug. This conversation is going to be all about you. It's going to be about your joy. It's going to be about the changes that you're brave enough to make in order to protect your joy, your peace, your space. Now that I've said all of those things, right? I've gotten all of the legalities out of the way, if you will. I am not at any time, way, shape, form going to try to sell you anything in this 30 minutes. We are going to have a talk. We are going into 2025. And if you're going into 2025 in a space that you want it to look different than your 2024, it kind of starts with boundaries. Everything that we do in our lives starts with some type of a boundary. And we hear that word a lot. And what does it even really mean? Right? So, the purpose of this webinar, this talk, this conversation that we're having, the purpose of it is for us to explore what kind of life you can create when we no longer chase the things that disrupt our peace by understanding healthy relationship dynamics, what they look like, managing our stress effectively, what that looks like, and fostering stronger relationships with yourself, with your peace, and with the joy that is associated with those two things. I would like to emphasize this one very important thing in this particular part of this webinar. True change does not happen by waiting for others to act. Your change will and always will start with you. Okay, it may be encouraged by others, it may be motivated by others, but true change does not happen by waiting for others to do it. It will always start with you. Now, I like to open these things up in a reflective perspective kind of way. So I'm going to start with asking you a question, something to just provoke a thought for you. Have you ever felt like you are giving so much of yourself that there is barely any of you left for you? Whether that is with your family, your friends, your partners, coworkers, whomever. Have you ever felt like you have given so much of yourself that there is barely anything left of you for you? We often find ourselves overextended, trying to be everything for everyone. The truth in that is that it is not selfish to step back and that it is okay to go, I'm overextended. And in fact, it is often necessary to take the step back. We don't take the step back out of fear of perhaps the perception of failure, or the perception of if I say no, I'm not strong. But the strength is in the boundary. It is in protecting your peace so that you can continue to show up. It is more than just about in the right now, how can I serve you? If the overarching goal is to continue to serve, you have to allow yourself the space to be able to grow and to continue to serve and pour. When you remove yourself from situations that drain you, if you will, you create spaces for yourself and for other people. You allow the people to appreciate you, your value, You allow them to meet you halfway. If we're having an honest moment, the right people in your life will not allow you to carry the weight of whatever it is that you're carrying in that relationship on your own. We will have rocky communication points, but the right people in your life won't let you carry that weight by yourself. So, how do you even start to figure that part, understanding your healthy relationship dynamics? Is to understand the signs of healthy relationships. It starts there, right? Signs of the healthy relationship. Is there clear communication? Is there listening to understand and not to respond? And that goes both ways. It is when we are listening to others and when we are speaking and listening to ourselves. Are we listening to respond? Am I listening to my body's cues to actually understand what is happening? Why is my body responding that way? Or am I listening already in response? And a lot of the times, communication wise in relationship dynamics, it's because we are listening to respond. And if we just paused long enough, we would understand that the weight that whomever we're talking to is carrying is equally as heavy. It's not our weight, so we don't feel as heavy, but it's heavy for them, right? And so I think a lot of times we don't completely understand that everybody is walking this earth carrying something. So understanding clear communication, are we listening to understand and not to respond? Are we respecting boundaries, physical, emotional, mental? You're going to hear me say boundaries a lot this evening. Is there mutual support for your growth, for your individuality, for your shared goals? Is there codependency? Have you lost your identity in your relationship, showing up for them? Have you lost you in showing up? Is it a one-sided effort? Is there a lack of reciprocity? And is there emotional manipulation? Is there are you sitting in a space where you are being guilt tripped and gaslit and stonewalled and every other adjective you could possibly use to describe? I may not be 100% forthright with you, or I don't feel like sitting with whatever emotion. And then learning to understand how to shift that power dynamic. So we start small. Identify one relationship where you have overextended yourself, and then give yourself permission to set a boundary. Give yourself permission today to set a boundary. What does those boundaries look like? Super small, super simple. If you are always the yes person, maybe that boundary today, tomorrow, going into your future looks like, I can't help you with that today, but I hope you figure it out, or I wish you the best of luck. I don't have the capacity, but I wish you all the best in getting it figured out, or letting a text sit for some time, some hours instead of some minutes before you instantly respond. That boundary isn't about punishing anyone, to include yourself. That boundary is about showing yourself and others that your time is valuable and your energy is valuable, and then choosing in the now what you feel like investing your energy in. So now we're going to go into how does this all play into managing your stress, right? So we live in this culture that glorifies being busy. If we're busy, if we're productive, we're successful, right? That's the thing. Busy doing, busy doing. And so it's super easy to mistake stress for productivity, but it isn't, how do I word it? Stress isn't your badge of honor. It's not the thing that you walk around, I'm so strong because I'm stressed. It's really not the badge of honor. It's not the golden star. It is your body's actual way of telling you something is not right. Hey, Pay attention to me. Something's not right. But we skip through it like, I'm used to feeling this way. So much so that when there's calm, it's an uneasy feeling because we feel like we need to be doing something. We weren't built to be in constant fight or flight. So to understand the importance of boundaries, you have to understand what the stress cycle does to your body. There are two different types of stress, if you will. But stress essentially is inflammation. It's your body's fight or flight response. And we can be in acute stress, and that could be a trauma, it could be an injury, it could be a wound, it could be a scar, it could be something that just happened right now. But if it doesn't go away, it becomes chronic stress. And that's the stuff that starts to affect our organs and our muscles and our joints and make our bodies feel icky and make us have zero energy and make us just feel blah, right? I would like for you to think about it like this. Um, you wouldn't let your phone necessarily stay on 2% battery all day. Most likely, if you're like me or any other person on this earth that has a phone, you're freaking out and you're going to go charge it. It is the same concept with our emotional batteries. If you wouldn't let your cell phone be on 2%, why would you allow your emotional battery to be on 2%? It also needs time to recharge. So basically, it also needs time to recharge. So how do we recharge? In the right now moments, in the I'm so busy doing, I incorporate stress check-ins. I find them very helpful. You could try asking yourself, what's draining me right now? I ask myself that a lot, several days out of the week, probably multiple times a day. What's draining me right now? Why do I feel this way? Is this within my control? And what can I let go of? Those three things changed my life. What is draining me right now? Getting to the root. Was this within my control? Yes or no? Addressing the root. And what can I let go of? Because at this point, if I've addressed the root and it's not within my control, and I've acknowledged that it's hurt me or stressed me out or it made me angry, if I choose to hold on, that is again an action, and change requires action. If I choose to not move forward, that action was my choice to stay stuck or rooted in the hurt that I feel and the trauma that I feel and the pain that I feel and the stress that I feel. If you wake up every day and go, I don't want to feel like this anymore, or I hate feeling this way. And I did that for a lot of my adult life. I did it for a lot of my adult life. I hate feeling this way. I don't want to do this. Change is hard. And I started off with change is hard and it's often scary. Change requires us to not let go. Change requires us to process the things that keep us rooted in the things that have hurt us. Change requires us to process the thing that requires us to shift our perspective. And so while we're shifting our perspective, what might look like stepping away from a difficult situation for someone else is like, oh, they're avoiding. What may look like avoidance to the other person is you protecting your space, your peace, your joy, your boundaries, your energy, all of those things. It is you taking a walk away instead of chasing the disruption. You can chase the encounter. And if it's an encounter that needs to be had, then it needs to be had. But does it need to be had in the moment where your emotions are unsettled? Not necessarily. We choose to have those encounters and then we stew in being upset with the encounter that we chose to have in a moment we weren't ready to have that encounter. And we could have said, I don't have the capacity to have this conversation. But we struggle with the boundaries of, I don't want to talk about it right now because that may you may receive a different energy from off of that, if the I don't want to talk about it right now. But sometimes the best thing to do is to walk away so that you can regulate and you can understand what it is you feel, your emotions, why you feel that way, so that you can communicate effectively instead of sitting on it and perhaps stewing. I was guilty for the sitting and stewing, guilty of the sitting and stewing, infamous. I could hold a grudge. That weight was killing me. It was killing me. So it has a ripple effect. Some other action steps. We can pause and breathe. And as cliche or whatnot as that sounds, it's helpful because it forces you to center on you, not on anything else. It forces you to pause and literally focus on you. Set your priorities to focus on what truly matters rather than reacting to every trigger. That one was huge for me because triggers are everywhere, if you will. They're everywhere. You will see something that will remind you of something that hurt you, that bothered you, that disturbed you, that made you mad. They're everywhere. So you can't really avoid the triggers. You learn how to release the emotions that you feel to focus on what matters to you in the now rather than what you see and you're receiving from the outside. When we do those things, we manage the damage, if you will. We stop projecting our stress on others by managing the damage, by pausing and breathing, by setting our priorities. We do all of those things so that we can foster a healthier relationship with ourselves. So let's talk about that part, the fostering the healthier relationship with yourself. The most overlooked relationship in our lives is often ourselves. It's the ones that we have with us. So now another question time. When was the last time you asked yourself, what makes me happy? What brings me peace? When was the last time you asked that and you were able to answer it and actually believe what it is that you told yourself or what you wrote down? We're often so busy meeting the needs of others that we don't really meet our own. And it's not even we don't meet our own needs. I'm going to let you in on a secret. The secret is we teach people how to love us. We teach people how to treat us by how we treat ourselves, by how we talk to ourselves, by how we love ourselves. And if you don't prioritize your peace, why would anyone else? If you don't prioritize your joy, why would anyone else? If you don't prioritize your calm and manage your stress, why would anyone else make it a priority to manage your calm or manage your stress? Every week, I schedule joy dates. I didn't always know how to date myself, but it is how I started to rediscover my joy. I started going out on joy dates. It was my goal to protect the thing that I had found that I hadn't always had, that I thought perhaps maybe I had at one time, but I didn't truly understand joy. And so I started taking classes with myself, with some girlfriends. I started spending time writing again and reading books, dancing in my living room. I started doing all the craziness, the fun stuff, the stuff that I had stopped doing because I didn't know how to just breathe. These moments, the moments where you just let it go, you just breathe, remind you that happiness doesn't have to depend on others. We choose to wait for others. It is something that we can cultivate on our own. So I encourage you to start a joy journal. What does that even look like? Every day, I wrote down something that brought me joy, no matter how small, how big, over time. I started to see patterns. I started to see what was filling my cup. I also started to see what was draining it. And I used that to be more intentional with my choices about how I was spending my time, how I was spending my energy. My joy journal was a day-to-day, real-time 4K reflection of, am I really okay? Where am I not balanced? Why does that matter? It matters because you can't pour from an empty cup. It matters because peace and joy starts within and radiates outward into relationships. Boundaries teach others how to treat you by the limits that you set for you. So create moments of stillness, silence, mindfulness each day, and then let go of the ideal of perfection. Accept where you are in the journey. It's beautiful. If we stop speeding past it for perfection, accept where you are in your journey. It's beautiful. You've overcome a lot of things. You've gotten through a lot of things. And then surround yourself with people that uplift you. Your people, your spaces, your things, your activities uplift you. The world is dark enough to be surrounded by dark and then choose dark. The world is dark enough. You deserve joy. Um, some other things I do, gratitude journaling. Um, I do affirmations. Those were very, very helpful for me and still are. So here's the thing about change. Change is uncomfortable. It is very, 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 very uncomfortable. But do you know what's even more uncomfortable? Staying stuck. Staying stuck in the cycle that no longer serves you is even more uncomfortable. And we know when we've outgrown that space. And we know that we're choosing perhaps to stay there because it's familiar and it's more comfortable because it's known and the unknown is scary. Change does not mean that you have to overhaul your entire life overnight. It literally is just you taking small, small, consistent actions that align with your life, not your life in the lens of others. Small, consistent changes that align with the life that you want to create. It is literally you showing yourself the same compassion that you give others when things don't go perfectly or when they're trying and trying and trying again. Take the small step. Take the small step. So I'm going to open up for any questions, comments. Does anybody have anything? I want to thank you so much for spending this last 30 minutes with me.
It was very encouraging to hear you explain things that we know we've experienced but haven't been able to express.
Hmm.
And it's an ongoing journey to understand how to overcome the thoughts in our mind that we are naturally inclined to make
Hmm.
about ourselves as being people who care for others and or have been subjected to things that we can't control and just emotions that kind of overrun our minds versus feeling justified and knowing that it's okay to stand
Yeah,
and represent ourselves. So I appreciate that.
absolutely. Anyone else? All right. So my final thoughts. Change isn't easy, but it's worth it. Definitely. And by taking the action, you're not just transforming your life, but you're setting the standards for how others will treat you going forward and how you move in through this world.
There's a question in the chat.
Oh, there's a question in the chat. Thank you. All right. What is a good way to express your emotions when you feel like the other person isn't hearing to listen and understand? So I've had that. Had that a lot in my life. Um, what I've learned to do is pause. And that sounds really weird and it annoys the other person. But I learned to pause and I go, are you hearing what I'm saying? And then I ask them to repeat what I said. Are we actively listening? Are we listening to respond? And if they are at the point where they can't repeat what it is that I say, then I know that you're not listening to actively listen, to understand. You're listening to respond. And I respectfully leave that conversation. And I go, I guess we're not going to talk about it right now, or I don't have the capacity to go back and forth if you're not going to actively listen. You can tell people are very guarded when they're not actively listening, but that is how I navigated. I my ears are on, my spidey senses are on, and I go, okay, am I listening to respond? Or am I listening to understand? Oh no.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh,
Yes. Sorry, I'm driving. I put the
um,
question in the chat, but yeah. So for me, I know when I've gotten to the point where maybe my facial cues or the way that I come off is very harsh,
mm-hmm,
and it can be taken offensively by the other person. So not just that I want them to hear what I'm saying, but even changing or noticing what I'm doing and maybe thinking, okay, is this person going to receive what I have to say? Because I want to be heard.
right.
I don't want them to think that I'm coming after them because I'm upset.
Sometimes we go into conversations already guarded, so much so that when we are relaying what it is that we're trying to say, it comes off as already guarded. Like we go into conversations already feeling like it's going to go left. And how we relay the information and having that conversation, the conversation really will go left. I think when we walk into spaces more calm, a little bit more reserved, even in the conversations that are uncomfortable, are you open to having a conversation where we're actively listening? Because I would like resolution. So if the conversation ultimately doesn't end in resolution, then it's not time to have that conversation. But I now tell people, because time is the thing you don't get back, is the point of the conversation for resolution, especially if it's something that's conflict related. Is this for resolution or are we going to keep talking in a circle? Because if we're talking in a circle, that tells me that one of us isn't ready to either move on from the thing that just damaged our relationship. We still want to sit in the I'm right or you're wrong, or either we want to mend it or we don't. And if we don't, then I respect that. But I would also really like to be heard. The amount of times that you're not heard, though, take mental note of that because then the next question is, why do you keep going back into spaces where you feel like you're being muted? Just food for thought.
That's a
Ask
good
yourself how
question.
many conversations you have with that person or in that space where you feel like you're being muted. Alrighty. So, wait, are we still there?
Yes.
All right. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's a good point to make.
Yeah, we sit in we go through this. I don't like the way that they're talking to me, or I don't like the way I feel when I'm in this room or where I go into these spaces. If we are repeat offenders in those spaces, Who's really the person who's at fault at that point? If we keep going back to the thing that is poking the bear, but we never say it's poking the bear, or we never have resolution for the thing that poked the bear, but we keep going back, whose fault is it really? It's really easy. It's way easier to go, they hurt me, or it's their fault they did. But it's very difficult to have a mirror moment to go, but I kept going back, or I didn't speak up, or I allowed it because I didn't want to have the follow-up conversation that may have come with, I didn't like that.
Right.
Your voice has power. Everyone, all of our voices have power, and it's a simple listen. Can we chat? And in the cases where that doesn't have resolution, the name of the webinar was Let Them Miss You. Change requires action. And I mean that too. Let them miss you. Change requires action. Not just I'm sorry or I'll fix it. Change is an action word. And so to say the thing and your actions not match, that's what this webinar was about. We say we want things and people tell us that they will do things, and we may settle. We may settle for that to be true, and then it never come into fruition. Maybe their actions never actually lined up and we saw it and we were hurt by it or irritated by it, but ultimately hurt by it in the end. But then the bigger question is, was I trying to change you for me or change me for you? Because regardless, now there's a compatibility thing. You see what I'm saying? And that's in friendships dynamics, that's intimate relationship dynamics. Now there's a compatibility issue, but we don't want to be the person to go. Either we can resolve it or acknowledge that we're not compatible, but I wish you well. Acknowledge we can't have this conversation and I wish you well. Acknowledge that I don't have the capacity to help you, but I wish you figure it out. I hope you figure it out. But I don't have the capacity because I'm trying to figure out stuff for me and not in a selfish way. But I can't pour from an empty cup. And I can't scream in a silent room or in a deaf room. So it would be pointless to scream in a deaf room. So I walk away from conversations where ears aren't on. Anybody else? I really hope that was helpful.
How do you navigate a room where deaf ears are on, where it's a room you know you're going to be in, but unfortunately, there's value in the room,
Mm-hmm.
but unfortunately, the people, how do you just keep choosing to not be triggered?
Listen, that's hard. Okay. We could do a whole nother hour on that. But I remind myself daily, if I'm in spaces where I know that the space is valuable, but the people, some of the people in it trigger me, what was the bigger picture? Why am I in the space? I have to remind myself, what was the space for? I'm here for the information in the space, not for the people in the space. Now, if it's one of those situations where it's the people in the space and I feel that way, then my body is telling me this was not the space for you. Now, if I choose to power through that and be anxious and sweaty and nauseous and all the things, I did it to myself because my body went, this isn't the room for you this time. And it's okay. I didn't always feel like it was okay to outgrow spaces or go, no, not this time, or always say, yes, I needed to go because somebody invited me. Not every space is for you, and that's okay. And not every person is your person, and that's okay. And not every conversation is for you, and you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But we feel so committed to going into the things because we said yes, even if it makes us feel icky. What are you really getting from the space? How much are you getting from the space if while you're there, you feel angsty? If you're focused on all of the other things, are you actually present at that moment? And so that's what I bring myself back to. If I feel this way in this space with these people, I'm not focused on why I came to the space to begin with. which means now I'm not present. It means I don't need to be here because I'm hyper focused on everything else that's keeping me from being present. So I leave and I find the next thing that's value added that doesn't make my body feel icky. All right, guys,
Thank you. Thank
you're
you.
welcome. We got about a minute left, so I want to leave you with this. You deserve relationships that uplift you and that feel balanced. And I mean that. And they're beautiful when you find them, when you create them. They are beautiful. You deserve a heart full of joy. But these things don't happen by accident, and they require action on your part. The good news is that you already took some action. You popped into this today and spent 30 minutes with me on a Friday. As you leave, remember that you have the power to choose peace, to protect your joy, and to create the kind of relationships in life that reflect your worth. It has been great. I'll see you guys at the next one.